Welcome back to the Morning Kickoff Show. I'm your host, Matt Witt, and we are back to preview a Minnesota Vikings football game. Not only are we back to preview a football game for a team that is red hot, but we are here to preview what might be the biggest matchup for this Minnesota Vikings this season. Now, it's hard to say that because obviously it's not a divisional game and it's not even an NFC opponent for that matter, so it might not be a must-win game for the Vikings, but it could be a staple game for the Minnesota Vikings. This week 10, the Minnesota week 10. Wow. Week 10, the Minnesota Vikings will travel to Buffalo to take on the 6-2 Buffalo Bills this Sunday, 12 o'clock Central Time on Fox if you're in the Minnesota area. Right now, the Buffalo Bills are 3.5-point favorites in this matchup. Opening betting line gave them a 7.5-point favorite, but due to a lot of injuries that they've suffered with, biggest one being with Josh Allen, the betting line has moved to 3.5-point favorites in the Buffalo Bills' favor because despite maybe having a backup quarterback, likely going to be backup quarterback in this game. We're going to see the Case Keenum and Stefon Diggs connection here against their former team here in Minnesota. They might have an injury. They're still playing at one of the best home field advantages in this entire league. There's going to be a low chance of rain, low chance of winds in this game, and a very loud Buffalo Bills fan base. It's going to be interesting to watch in this game how the Minnesota Vikings can perform on enemy territory. The Vikings haven't really been in enemy territory this season. When you look at it, most of our games so far this season have been home opponents. And when we play away, it feels like we are playing at home. So this might be the only time this season, not named the Philadelphia Eagles game. Obviously, that one is completely different. Other than the Philadelphia Eagles game, this is the only time we're really playing in enemy territory. If you saw against the Washington game, in the Miami game, in the Arizona game, although that one was at home, in the London game, for example, it felt like a home game. And if Case Keenum does start in this game for the Buffalo Bills, this would be the fourth time this season the Vikings are playing a backup quarterback. So the argument that the Vikings haven't played anybody yet is a valid argument, other than obviously the Philadelphia Eagles, who they got destroyed by. But looking at it right now, that aside, it's going to be interesting to see what the Vikings can do in this game. And this is not just an important game for the Vikings, but an important game for multiple players in this game. Looking at it right now, the biggest win-win trade, I believe, in NFL history, looking back on it, was the Stefon Diggs to Buffalo Bills trade. And I don't believe we've ever seen a win-win trade like this in NFL history. Typically in trades, one side of the deal is on the far better side of the deal, is what we'll say. In this trade, you can make the argument for both of these sides being that they got the better end of the deal because they just both won by that much. Minnesota Vikings traded away Stefon Diggs, their franchise wide receiver, and possibly upgraded at the position by getting a younger, more affordable player, as of right now, more affordable player at the position, and in some people's opinions, better at the position. Both receivers are top 3 in the league in receiving yards right now and have built one of the best quarterback to wide receiver connections in this entire league right now. On top of this, looking at the Buffalo Bills, they got a starting corner, that Jackson kid, with our 7th round draft pick as well. So it's like everything in this deal aligned and went well for both sides. Looking at it, you just don't see win-win trades like this ever. And when the Vikings traded away Stefon Diggs, it looked like the Vikings were on the losing side of the deal. Little did we know we were going to get the future possible best receiver in the league. 3 years into his career, leads NFL history in most receiving yards in the first 3 seasons of his career. Great trade. On top of this, you have multiple other names who are looking to get revenge games. Harrison Phillips right now on our defensive line, coming from the Buffalo Bills. Nothing against him and the Buffalo Bills, but still, there's something about playing your former team that makes players a lot better when they play their former team. On top of this, you have the Cook brothers going head-to-head, Dalvin Cook and James Cook, his younger brother, who is now the 3rd string running back in Buffalo, the rookie. And then Dalvin Cook needs absolutely no introduction whatsoever. And then taking a look at the injury report for this matchup, as we mentioned, Josh Allen, more likely than not, will not play in this game. And on top of this, they have a lot of injuries. Minnesota Vikings added to their injury report as of the last couple of weeks. Starting it off with Cameron Dantzler, who's doubtful to play in this game, likely won't play in this game, went down last week in the Minnesota Vikings win over the Commanders, and with an ankle injury and will likely not play in this game. Great news was that Caleb Evans was able to step in. How often do you find 4th round draft picks, corners, come in with that much confidence and come up with a huge stop, 4th and 1 stop, one of the biggest plays of this game came from Caleb Evans, who will likely start in this game, assuming Cam Dantzler does not play. Dalvin Tomlinson, another player who will likely not play in this game, suffered with a calf injury a couple of weeks ago, has not practiced so far this week with the team. We saw James Lynch come in and do a solid job. James Lynch or Ross Blacklock, whoever starts in this game, is a perfectly fine backup. Our second team defensive front is strong. We have one of the best defensive linemen in the league when you're looking at depth as a whole. Garrett Bradbury, another player who went down last week with an injury, was limited so far this week on Thursday's practice with the team with an ankle injury. Could see Schlotman come in for that. And then onto the Buffalo Bills sideline, they have a lot of marquee injuries to some core players in the team. Starting it off with the MVP front runner right now, Josh Allen, who is questionable playing this game, has not practiced so far with the team and wasn't even at practice for the team, which is why I'm going to assume that he won't play in this game. And I'm saying this for multiple different reasons. Although he is day-to-day with an injury, I believe the reason why they haven't said that Josh Allen is not going to play in this game is simply because they want the Minnesota Vikings to prepare for playing Josh Allen. They want us to think that we're going to play Josh Allen, and then closer to the game, we'll rule him out when comes Sunday morning or Saturday night. I just don't see a case where it would make sense for the Bills to try to play Josh Allen in this game when, like I mentioned, it's not a must-win game for either one of these teams. You're playing an opponent who's on the opposing conference and who's on the other conference, and both teams kind of already locked down their division. I mean, let's be honest. Does anybody think that the AFC East is open for grabs? I know the Jets might be hot, but let's be honest. Dolphins might be stepping it up too, but I feel like the Bills have just locked it down already. Minnesota Vikings have the biggest lead in a division in years. I mean, we have a 6-game lead this early in the season, which is incredible. Looking at it for Josh Allen, I just don't think it would make sense for them to play him, risking a player of his talent being injured in a game that's really not like a playoff game for the Minnesota Vikings or for the Buffalo Bills or Vikings for that matter. And we'll likely see Minnesota great Case Keenum come in and start for them. Case Keenum is known to play very well when he has a great defense, like we saw with the Minnesota Vikings. Had the best defense in the league, and he looked good. Now with the Buffalo Bills, playing with arguably the best defense in the league, and he typically looks good when the circumstances are great for him. Tremaine Edmonds, the former first-round draft pick, did not participate so far this week with a groin and heel injury. He's a beast. Middle linebacker, this is another huge loss if he does not play in this game. One of the core players on that excellent defense that they have. Tre'Davious White. Now, some great news for the Bills is the fact that Tre'Davious White is expected to play in this game. Now, for many of you guys may know, but Tre'Davious White, one of the lockdown corners in this league, has not played since Thanksgiving of last year. So, torn his ACL and has not played in about an entire year or so. He might come back into play in this game, and that would be huge for their defense. Their defense has been great without him, and it would be even better with him, as we've seen from the past, especially when you're playing a receiving core as good as the Minnesota Vikings are. Kaiir Elam, another corner to mention here, their first-round draft pick. I think he was first-round draft pick, if I have that right. Either way, he's a rookie corner, first or second round draft pick, did not participate this week with an ankle injury. And then two players on their defense have been ruled out. Two core players in the defense have been ruled out in this game. Gregory Rousseau, their former first round draft pick, I believe that would have been in 2021, if I have that right, has been ruled out in this game with an ankle injury. He's been having an elite season. One of the core players on that unstoppable defense, like I've mentioned with Tremaine Edmonds and Kaiir Elam. Jordan Poyer, another stud, strong safety, has also been ruled out with an elbow injury. On top of this, Michael Hyde, another stud on that defense, has been moved to IR. So although their defense is unstoppable, and I will continue to say that defense is very impressive, they have suffered with a lot of injuries. Both of their starting safeties will not play in this game, being being Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde will not play in this game. And looking at the secondary as a whole, Tre'Davious White might not be there. Kaiir Elam might not be there. Tremaine Edmonds might not be there. Gregory Rousseau won't be playing for them. Those are all core players in the defense, and even with that, they are still an unstoppable defense, which is why Minnesota Vikings have to have a good day on the offensive side of the ball. This is not one of those games where you can sneak in a victory because your defense is able to turn the ball over a few times like they did couple weeks back against Miami, like they did against Arizona, where the Vikings defense led us to victories just by simply turning the ball over. And this is what the Minnesota Vikings into this game. This cannot be one of those games where we accidentally slowly sneak in a win in the fourth quarter. This has to be a game where the offense has to be good all 4 quarters of this game. And I believe they will be. The reason why is just because I believe this Minnesota Vikings team has found their rhythm. We are off to a 6-game win streak right now. Minnesota Vikings defense has come together after a slow start to this season, turning the ball over in 3 straight weeks from Harrison Smith, turning the ball over in every game of the season so far, being one of the best teams at rushing the passer now, with Zadarius Smith being, I believe he's second in the league in sacks right now. Danielle Hunter's coming together, DJ Wanham into the rotation, and you can even add Jordan Hicks in there too. The guy has been elite at rushing the passer, despite his big, massive frame and slower speed, has been able to get to the quarterback as well. So the Vikings have found the rhythm, and I think it's safe to say that this Vikings defense is good enough. They've given us a couple victories now. This cannot be one of those games where we rely on our defense to be able to win us this game, especially when your offense has as many playmakers as they do, which is when I say the biggest thing that can give the Vikings this victory, because I believe the Vikings can win this game. I know it's the Buffalo Bills, and even if Josh Allen does play in this game, I believe it is a very, very tough matchup for both of these teams. Like we see in the NFL right now, both teams are in a lot of people top 5 in this league right now, with obviously the Minnesota Vikings having a hot start, 7-1 start, one of the best starts in franchise history, and Buffalo Bills having one of the best rosters in NFL history, with one of the best, arguably the best offense and arguably the best defense in this entire league. Looking at it, the biggest thing for the Vikings to win this game, key number 1, offense, please involve absolutely everybody. Like I mentioned, there is games where the Vikings can win off of their defense alone. There is games the Vikings can win off of handing the ball off to Dalvin Cook 30 times a game. There are games the Vikings can win by targeting Justin Jefferson 15 times in the game. But this is not one of those games. This is one of those games where you are playing not just a playoff team, you are playing a Super Bowl team, meaning the Minnesota Vikings have to come fully prepared for this game by involving absolutely everybody that wears purple on this roster. TJ Hawkinson coming in. This is TJ Hawkinson maybe toughest matchup of his career. Tremaine Edmonds, if he does play in this game, he hasn't been ruled out. He might play in this game. Tremaine Edmonds, one of the best middle linebackers in the league, one of the best off-ball linebackers in the league. Same goes for Matt Milano. Matt Milano's been a beast on that defense. He is going up against some of the biggest off-ball linebackers in this league who can do great into coverage, I mean to say. And then the offense just as a whole. This is the hardest matchup. I just talked about TJ Hawkinson, but you got Justin Jefferson who's going against Tre'Davious White if he does play in this game. And that secondary as a whole, outstanding. Their safety duo is not going to be playing in this game, so that's going to be something the Vikings have to look for. But can we even get a single deep ball against this Bills defense is the question. Because our Vikings offensive line has too many holes. Let's be honest. Ed Ingram's been terrible this season. Garrett Bradbury, while maybe having the best season of his career, might not be saying a whole lot, is still not great into pass protection. He's done a great job in run blocking. When it comes to pass protection, has not done an outstanding job. Ezra Cleveland is coming off of the worst day of his career, in my opinion, last week against the Commanders. Brian O'Neill's looking like he's having a step back, and then Christian Darrisaw's a beast. Still, regardless of how good our offensive line is or how bad our offensive line is, depending on who you ask, you're going up against arguably the best defensive line in this entire league, one of the best pass rushing teams in this entire league. Gregory Rousseau might not play in this game. Tremaine Edmonds might not play in this game. They still got Von Miller. They still have that entire defensive front, basically. It's going to be a tough matchup regardless for the Minnesota Vikings of who does and who doesn't play in this game. For the Vikings, you have to involve absolutely everybody. I'm looking at CJ hammer time here. I'm looking at Alexander Madison, backup running back. I'm looking at Adam Thielen having a career day. I'm looking at KJ Osborne getting into the mix. Maybe you throw maybe not Jalen Reagor, but TJ Hawkinson. You could throw these guys into the mix. You need to involve everybody in this game. This is not one of those games that you can win based off of your defense turning the ball over 3 times, based off of your running back being able to run all over the defense. This is one of those games where you are playing a Super Bowl team and you have to come fully prepared with an entire new playbook designed to be able to stop this Vikings or be able to stop this Bills defense. Going to be interesting to watch. Looking on the defense side of the ball, like I mentioned, this Vikings defense is just weird. But in my opinion, blitzing Keenum and watching those checkdowns. I'm assuming Keenum is starting for the Bills. I don't expect that they would play Josh Allen. I think it would be a stupid decision for them. Not because I don't want to see him to play. I do want to see Josh Allen play in this game. It's just, it doesn't make any sense. You don't want to risk an MVP candidate getting injured in a game that's not really a must-win game for the Bills. For that reason, I think Keenum will play in this game. And what are the Bills good at? Passing the ball. And what do the Bills love to do? Check down, dump off passes to Devin Singletary, Nyheim Hines, James Cook. Although James Cook can't catch a football for his life, he can still throw it to Devin Singletary and dump it off to Nyheim Hines, who they just traded for. So you have to watch for that. Looking at the Minnesota Vikings, getting to Case Keenum shouldn't be a problem. I know it's the Bills' offensive line, but we're looking at one of the best pass rushing teams in this entire league right now. Jordan Hicks has been a great blitzer. Obviously, Zadarius Smith is Zadarius Smith. Danielle Hunter's come together. DJ Wanham. Do I have to continue to name names? Our Vikings pass rushing team is great. And what have the Vikings defense been able to do this entire season? Turn the ball over. Get to the passer. For that reason, Vikings defense has come together. Let's be honest. Last few weeks, the Vikings defense has been outstanding, and hats off to this Vikings secondary and this Vikings pass rushing team to be able to come up with the big time plays that they've come up with. This is the Buffalo Bills. This is the biggest matchup for both the offense and defense on this Vikings team, and I'm really interested to see what they can do in this matchup. Regardless of who starts under center or not, it's a tough game for the Minnesota Vikings. It's a tough atmosphere to play in Buffalo. Is maybe the hardest away game of the season, and Philadelphia Eagles are in the mix as well, where when the Vikings played into Philadelphia Eagles territory, did a terrible job. Now going into this week, I believe it's safe to say that our Vikings team is a lot better than they were in week 2. Going to be interesting to say is pretty much the second time we're playing in enemy territory this season. Looking at it for a bold prediction of the week, someone will win on the first drive of overtime. Okay, Buffalo fans, if any of you guys are tuning into the show, you guys know about first drive of overtime. Games usually get decided on a coin flip, and this looks like one of those games where it's going to be a hard fought victory for either of these two teams. And whoever starts under center, I believe that it's going to be a close game for both the Vikings and Bills, and it's going to be one of those games that you go back to the locker room after either winning or losing, and you feel good about yourself. Obviously, you don't usually feel good about yourself when you lose, but it's going to be a respectful loss. It's going to come down to the wire is what I'm trying to say here. Final prediction, I believe that the Vikings will lose in this game. I just like to I'm not one of the Vikings fans to try to get my expectations very high. I say that, but I have done that many times in the show. I'm going to predict my Vikings to lose that way. When we more likely than not do lose in this matchup, I won't be that surprised. Final prediction, Minnesota Vikings 20, Buffalo Bills 26, Vikings lose. Still, I really hope I'm wrong. I want to see my Vikings win. I want to come up with a victory, and I want to come up with not only a victory, but a staple win for this team. I just am not convinced that we can perform that well into actual enemy territory like we saw Monday Night Football against the Philadelphia Eagles. Super excited to see what our Vikings can do in this matchup. This is a huge game, the game of the week. Two of the best teams in this league. Maybe future Super Bowl championship. We might get in a preview. I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. Super excited. Hope you all are too. Let me know what your thoughts and opinions are in this matchup.